waiting for the train to pass.
No,
Maybe it's
I
about
like that one.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Well, there's that train. Had some people on my mind. Have we heard anything from Trent lately?
Trent Cole?
Yeah.
Yes. I still call him. He at the end of this month, he's going back to Chicago and start treatment for
So going to be at the end of May. He's not having any treatment right now.
right.
Okay.
And my understanding is that because I'm tired, I'm a little slow right now. His prostate, he's gonna have his prostate removed.
Right. Yeah.
That's supposed to
Yeah. I had talked to him
solve
several
his
weeks ago,
problem.
and he had mentioned that. But I did dawn on me. I haven't seen anything from him on Facebook in a while.
No,
he's pretty low.
He's not doing anything right now. I just call him. Matter of fact, I called him one day last week.
Yeah.
Talked to him for about 30 minutes.
Yeah, I need to send him another message. Let's keep him in our prayers. And Bishop, I had a conversation with Bishop yesterday
Okay,
on Facebook.
You doing better than me then.
Well, it was question and answer time. He wanted to know whether Abraham was regenerated or not.
What?
You know, to each his own. We'll leave it right there. To each his own.
I wanted to say, well, yeah, but I don't know if I would use that terminology
Exactly.
necessary. I would say he had a circumcised heart to match his circumcision in the flesh. You know, he was a believer, and he
Right.
was justified by faith. As to whether he's regenerate, well, that's kind of like taking New Testament terms and
Right.
pasting them into the Old Testament.
But you know
to
what
me.
my point is? I'm sorry.
It's not that big a deal.
My point is, what's the point? I'm just saying, sometimes you can just traffic in information, but what's the point? What's your point? Because me knowing Bishop like I know him, he always has an underlining motive as to why he puts out what he puts, but he never reveals.
Yeah, he asks pointed
What his-
questions.
exactly.
And so
But he
what I
never
started to
reveals.
do is I started countering pointed questions with him and asking my own. And in that way we had a little conversation.
Okay, well, hey,
Which was
more,
okay.
more power to you then, because I don't have time for it. I'm just being honest. I'm like, come on, man, get to the point. Don't be lead me nowhere.
Well, in
It's
the
almost like-
end, I
it's-
said, you and I are both, well, there's no telling how wrong we may be about some things. You know, humility is endless, T.S. Eliot.
Yes.
And he said, well, I'm humble, but I'm right.
That's him. I mean, that's him.
So, okay.
Hey, well, more power to him.
Yes. So let's keep him in mind too. We still
Well, you know,
don't want to cut ties with him.
They want to come down in January.
Good. I'm hoping he didn't respond, but I'm hoping he's got another book in him. I asked him, you know, I'd love to be a beta reader, and if you don't need an editor, maybe I could just proofread, be a text reader for you. If you've got a book, I'd like to help. He didn't respond, so I don't know. But hey,
That's his wife's
Anytime.
territory.
he wants to ask questions. And the other thing is Rodney. I by the way, your ex-friend Rodney. I've been
You talking about
Rodney,
Rodney, help me out.
the famous judgment seat of Christ controversy.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah, I haven't really paid
I
attention.
did, like I said, when I
But-
deleted him, I haven't looked back.
But I've been listening to him, and I've had a few short text conversations back and forth with him. And he's what he calls doing a read through of the book of Acts on Wednesday and Thursday. He's been doing that for several weeks. And it's interesting. He's actually seeing some things that I definitely am in agreement with. And it's like, I'm not sure if he quite understands that he's moving closer to the Acts 28 position.
Right.
He definitely is. That's not to say
Well, Leroy Reed is an Acts 28er.
Yeah.
And so they're all chummy. So with that being said,
Yeah.
but like I said, my main reason for dumping them guys, I don't like bad attitudes in teaching. When you're disrespectful toward anybody, you lost me. I'm done. Because I'm not gonna do it, and I don't respond to people who try to belittle other people. I'll drop you quick.
All right, so I guess I better say good evening again to everybody. I don't think we want to put that conversation on the tape.
It don't matter, he can't get to me anyway. I mean, I deleted him.
Yeah, but still, yeah, we're not going to put that on the tape. So, all right, so it's been a few weeks. Everybody ready for Bible class?
Yes.
Mhm.
All right, so this is Acts Survey Session 23. And guess what? We're starting Paul's voyage to Rome. We're starting that journey today. So we have a new map for everybody. This map is very abbreviated. All right, now it has been a while, so just to review, last time we had gotten Paul all the way back to Jerusalem, and he was in a fix. He had done some things to get into the temple to try to show that he's not one that is teaching the Hebrews to forsake the law of Moses, but it didn't go well because some of the Ephesians who were in Jerusalem, and probably this was around the feast time, might have been at Pentecost, that they were in Jerusalem also. Well, they put a false charge up against Paul that he was teaching the Hebrews to forsake the law, which is a false charge, as we saw last time. And also, they made the false charge that he had brought in Trophimus, the Ephesian, a Gentile, into the temple, which was a big no-no. So it caused a little bit of a riot there, and they shut him out of the temple, and they proceeded to beat him, and they were going to kill him. But word got to the commander, I can't remember what they call him. We'll see here in a minute. His name is Claudius Lysias, I believe, which we're going to find out later on. But he comes down because he wants to see what is going on here, because Jerusalem is a powder keg ready to blow at this time. The Hebrews wanted to be free from Rome. And so anything that might cause an insurrection, he wanted that put down immediately. So he goes into this thing thinking, well, this guy is causing an insurrection, probably going to kill this guy. And he goes in, and Paul gives him some information about him. They stop him from killing him, and he wants to find out some information. And Paul says, well, I am a citizen of no mean city. I'm from a Jew of Cilicia. He doesn't tell him yet that he is a Roman citizen. He gives him just a little bit of information as it goes. And this guy was thinking, well, Paul's not sophisticated enough to even know Greek. He's surprised the guy knows Greek. Anyway, they bring Paul up with soldiers around, probably holding him up to keep the people who are following behind. They're going to the garrison, or the King James calls it the castle. And the soldiers are keeping them from killing Paul. And Paul wants to talk to the people. And so on the steps leading into the garrison, Paul stands and he addresses the Hebrews, and he tells about his conversion, and he tailors it to the Hebrews, and he does it in the Hebrew language, which gets their attention right away. And probably the commander, the chief captain, there's my language, the chief captain doesn't understand Hebrew, so he's probably not knowing what's going on at this time. But Paul addresses the people, the rioters, in Hebrew, and they listen to him. And it seems like, well, maybe he's going to calm this down, except he says this one word at the end,
Right.
that starts the tumult all over again. And what was that one word? Gentiles. He says the word Gentiles, and away with this person. He's not fit to live. And so they get Paul into the garrison, and we'll pick up our action. Let's see, we're midway down in chapter 22 of Acts. And here's what I was just reciting. Away with this fellow. This is 22, middle of the verse. From the earth, it's not fit that he should live. And they cried out and cast off their clothes and threw dust into the air. So harum scarum, you know. The chief, verse 24, the chief captain commanded him, Paul that is, to be brought into the castle and bade that he should be examined by scourging, that he might know wherefore they cried so against him. So Paul was speaking in Hebrew. This captain didn't know what was being said, so he's going to find out, and he's going to take it out of Paul's flesh to find out what was going on there. Here we see the first time Paul is going to take it a little bit further, and he's going to get it known to the captain a little bit more about who he is, and that's going to save him a little bit of skin here. And so they bound him with thongs. Okay, so he had been in chains. Now they've put him in thongs, and it reminds me of Agabus saying that this man is going to be bound sashed with a belt or a girdle, I think the King James calls it. So the same sort of thing. He's bound with thongs, and Paul, let's see, that he should be examined by scourging, that they might not know wherefore they so cried against him. Verse 25, they bound him with thongs, and Paul said unto the centurion that stood by, is it lawful for you to scourge a man that is a Roman and uncondemned? So Paul is using his citizenship here. He's playing the citizenship card. So can you scourge a Roman and an uncondemned person? And so when the centurion, verse 26, heard that, he went and told the chief captain, saying, take heed what thou doest, for this man is a Roman. And once again, as we've seen in previous sessions, being a Roman citizen had some power and authority and clout in the ancient world. So Paul says he's a Roman. Well, that's going to get the captain's attention really fast. And then the captain came, verse 27, and said unto Paul, tell me, art thou a Roman? And he said, yea. And the chief captain answered, with a great sum obtained I this freedom. And Paul said, but I was free born. Okay, so yeah, you bought your freedom, but hey, I'm free born as a Roman citizen. Then straightway they departed from him, which should have examined him. So not going to be any scourging here. Right. Oh no. And the chief captain also was afraid after he knew that he was a Roman, because he had bound him. So it wasn't just a scourging that could have caused a scandal. Right. It was just having put him in the thongs, having bound him and chained him as a Roman citizen without a known cause. Even that was enough to get him in hot water with his superiors. And so he was afraid. Verse 30, on the morrow, because he would have known the certainty whereof he was accused of the Jews. He still doesn't know what exactly is going on here. He's loosed him from his bonds, and he commanded the chief priests and all their council to appear, and brought Paul down and set him before them. So he's bringing Paul once again to the chief authorities to have him examined, to finally figure out what is going on here. What does the captain need to do about this situation? Chapter 23. And Paul, earnestly beholding the council, said, men and brethren, I've lived in all good conscience before God until this day. And the high priest Ananias commanded them that they stood by him to smite him on the mouth. And Paul loses his temper here. He says, God shall smite thee, thou whited wall, for sittest thou to judge me after the law, and commandest me to be smitten contrary to the law. So what the high priest commanded be done was something that was unlawful for the Hebrews to do. But they said, revilest thou God's high priest, Then said Paul, I wist not, I did not know, brethren, that he was the high priest, for it's written, thou shalt not speak evil of the ruler of thy people. So once again, he's showing them that he understands the law, that he knows it well. Okay, so he's showing them that much. And once again, we see Paul prepared to use what he needs to use to get out of this situation. Because when he perceived, verse 6, that the one part were Sadducees and the other part Pharisees, he cried out in the council, men and brethren, I am a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee. Of the hope and resurrection of the dead, I'm called in question. And when he'd so said, there arose a dissension between the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and the multitude was divided. So see what Paul is doing? He's played the citizenship card.
Right.
Now he's going full on Hebrew politics, and he's splitting it down the middle. And by doing this, he's going to get out of another fix, because I guarantee you these people still want to kill him and see him dead. So this is what he's going to do to get out of this situation. For the Sadducees, verse 8, say that there's no resurrection, neither angel nor spirit, but the Pharisees confess both. And that makes me think of what the Lord said about the Sadducees, that they don't know the Scriptures. And the Pharisees knew the Scriptures, but they didn't abide by it, and they corrupted it. But the Sadducees didn't know the power of the Scriptures whatsoever. So, the Pharisees and the Sadducees confessed that there are angels and that there's a resurrection. And there arose a great cry, verse 9, and the scribes that were of the Pharisees' part arose and strove, saying, we find no evil in this man, but what if a spirit or an angel have spoken to him? Let us not fight against God. And that's very similar to what Gamaliel said back in the earlier part of Acts, that we don't want to be seen as fighting against God. If God's with us, nothing's going to put it down. So it's very similar. And when except there's even more of a political thing that's going on. And when there arose a great dissension, the chief captain, fearing lest Paul should have been pulled in pieces of them, that's pretty serious, commanded the soldiers to go down and take him by force from among them and to bring him into the castle. So that didn't go well. Let's get him back into the castle before they flat out murder him. And the night following, the Lord stood by him and said, be of good cheer, Paul, for as thou hast testified of me in Jerusalem, so must thou bear witness also at Rome. So remember, Paul has determined all the way back in the middle of the last missionary journey, the third missionary journey, that he was going to Rome. And so the Lord is confirming, indeed, Paul, you are going to Rome, and says, do not fear. Okay? Be of good cheer, for as you have testified of me in Jerusalem, thou must bear witness at Rome. What does this tell us? Paul was in the will of God when this whole time that he was in Jerusalem. He had not committed a sin in going in with the 4 Hebrews and subsidizing the vow and their purification. He had committed nothing wrong there. It was not outside the will of God. Everything he's done here has been within God's purpose to get him to Rome. And God's going to do it in his own way. But Paul is not going to take this, and we're going to see this here in a minute. Paul is not going to take this that, hey, well, I can just, it doesn't matter what I do, I'm going to end up in Rome. It's not some sort of fatalistic thing. He's going to appeal to Caesar. He's going to see to it that plot against him gets to the captain, etc. So we'll see that. So Paul is to be of good cheer that he is going to bear witness to the Lord at Rome. Verse 12, and when it was day, certain of the Jews banded together and bound themselves under a curse, saying that they would neither eat nor drink till they had killed Paul. And they were more than 40 which made the conspiracy. Okay, so this is pretty serious. They've bound a serious oath. They're not going to eat, they're not going to drink until they're going to see this man dead.
Right.
Okay, pulled to pieces. And they came to the chief priests and elders and said, we bound ourselves under a great curse that we will eat nothing until we have slain Paul. So, wonder what happened to these guys. They're fighting against God here at this point, aren't
Right.
they? The Lord has said, you are going to bear witness to me in Rome. So whatever their ill-advised oath has been, it's not going to come to pass. So we don't know if they starved to death or if they reneged on their oath. That's an interesting thing. But now, therefore, ye with the council signify to the chief captain, and him bring him down unto you tomorrow, as though you would inquire something more perfectly concerning him, and we are, ever he come near, are ready to kill him. So once again, the captain has shown himself that he wants to find out what is going on here. The commander wants to understand what is up. And so it's been 2 times that he's allowed Paul to address these people so that he can learn more. So let's see if we can get him to do it a 3rd time. And this time we're going to make sure that Paul is a dead man. Meanwhile, Paul's sister's son, verse 16, heard of their lying in wait. And he went and entered into the castle and told Paul. Then Paul called one of the centurions unto him and said, bring this young man unto the chief captain, for he hath a certain thing to tell him. So he took him and brought him to the chief captain and said, Paul, the prisoner, called unto him and prayed me to bring this young man unto thee, who hath something to say unto thee. And the chief captain took him by the hand and went with him aside privately and asked him, what is that thou hast to tell me? And he said, the Jews have agreed to desire thee that thou wouldst bring down Paul tomorrow into the council, that's before the Sanhedrin, as though they would inquire something more perfectly. But do not yield unto them, for they lie in wait for him, more than 40 men which have bound themselves, that they will neither eat or drink till they've killed him. And now they're ready and looking for a promise from thee. So the captain then let the young man depart and charged him, seeing thou tell that thou hast showed these things to me. So keep that quiet. And I always wondered about this young man. I wonder what happened to him. At any rate, we're moving on. He called unto them 2 centurions, make ready 200 soldiers. So a century is 100 years. A centurion seems to be over 100 soldiers. I've seen some articles that say, no, that's not really true, but it says 2 centurions and 200 soldiers. So it sounds like that's what it is here at this juncture at least. To go to Caesarea, and horsemen 70. So that's 20, 40, 60, 70 horsemen on top of the 200 soldiers, and spearmen 200 at the 3rd hour of the night. That's
pretty serious.
That's a big crowd, isn't it? That is how serious he's going to protect this one man. And I think that's a testament to how concerned he was that this was going to cause a revolt within Judea. And remember that the first Jewish revolt happened in 66. And so within 8 years or so, this powder keg was going to explode, and it would end with Jerusalem being destroyed and the temple being taken down as the Lord had said it would back in Matthew. At any rate, this is a huge company to support this one man, to keep this mob of 40 from killing him, and he does succeed in protecting Paul with this large company. Provide them beasts, verse 24, that they may set Paul on and bring him safe unto Felix the governor. So Paul's like in the middle of this great company that's surrounding him, keeping him protective. And bring him to Felix the governor, and he wrote a letter after this manner. And here's where we find out the name of the chief captain. Claudius Lysias, unto the most excellent governor Felix, sendeth greetings, This man was taken of the Jews and should have been killed of them, then came out with an army and rescued him, having understood that he was a Roman. Okay? And when I would have known the cause wherefore they accused him, I brought him forth into their council, whom I perceived to be accused of questions of their law, but having nothing laid to his charge worthy of death or of bonds. And when it was told to me how that the Jews laid wait for the man, I sent straightway to thee and gave commandment to his accusers also to say for thee what they had against him. Farewell. Okay, so he's moving this up the chain into Caesarea, where the governor is, Felix. He's going to let him take care of it, and the accusers can go into Caesarea and they can present their case, but the chief captain gives his opinion that it's strictly about the Jewish law, and the man's done nothing to deserve death. And furthermore, he's a Roman citizen, as he says. Then the soldiers, verse 31, as it was commanded them, took Paul and brought him by night to Antipatris. On the morrow, they left the horsemen to go with him and returned to the castle. That sounds like, and I was thinking about this earlier, they left the horsemen to go with him. So the large contingent of the centurions, it looks like they had protected him, and it's not on your map, Antipatris, but it's about 3/4 of the way up to Caesarea. So they got him really close to Caesarea, and it looks to me like the contingent of the centurions, soldiers broke off, and it was the horsemen that took him on into Caesarea, if I'm reading that correctly. And they returned to the garrison, the castle, where the chief captain was in Jerusalem. But when they came to Caesarea, they delivered the epistle to the governor Felix and presented Paul also before him. And when the governor had read the letter, he asked of what province he was. Oh, he's a Roman citizen. Well, what province is he of? And when he understood that he was of Cilicia, he said, I will hear thee, and when thine accusers are also come, we're going to wait for the accusers to come present their case, and I will hear it himself, he says. So he's taking this as an important case. This is the governor. Okay, so he's going to hear this. This is an important case. And he commanded him to be kept in Herod's judgment hall. So Herod the Great had a palace in Caesarea, and this is what's left of it, and Paul is to be kept there awaiting judgment. So he's going to have a trial before Felix. Chapter 24. And after 5 days, Ananias the high priest descended with the elders and with a certain orator named Tertullus, who was informed the governor against Paul. Okay, so they brought this smooth-tongued orator to prosecute the case against Paul. And just listen to his language before Felix. And when he was called forth, Tertullus began to accuse him, saying, seeing that by thee we enjoy great quietness, and that very worthy deeds are done unto this nation by thy providence, we accept it always, and in all places, most noble Felix, with all thankfulness, notwithstanding that I be not further tedious unto thee, I pray thee that thou wouldst hear us of thy clemency in a few words. Now, he's a smooth-tongued devil, isn't he? And he's spreading it on thick. And if you know anything about Felix, he was a scoundrel of a character. So anyway, he's laying it on thick, and Felix was he was very cruel, and he loved a bribe, apparently. So he was not an honest governor. And by the way, he ruled somewhere. He was governor over I think the Samaritan area, Samaritan area, from 52 to 58 AD. So that's kind of our time frame. And Paul is going to be in Caesarea here for somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 years. Okay, so somewhere Paul's going to be in jail, as it were, a couple of years. Okay, so we see our smooth-tongued devil, and now he's going to turn his attention to that pestilent fellow. Verse 5, for we have found this man a pestilent fellow and a mover of sedition among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. That's pretty tough language. A ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. And he's also gone about to profane the temple, whom we took and would have judged according to our law. But the chief captain Lysias came upon us, and with great violence took him away out of our hands, commanding his accusers to come unto thee, by examining of whom thyself mayest take knowledge of all these things whereof we accuse him. Okay, so he's laid on a pretty heavy case against Paul. And the Jews also assented, saying, these things were so. Then Paul, after that the governor had beckoned to him to speak, answered, for as much as I know that thou hast been of many years a judge unto this nation, I do more cheerfully answer for myself. Because that thou mayest understand that there are yet but 12 days since I went up to Jerusalem to worship. Notice something. Paul didn't give 3 or 4 verses of flowery language to Felix, did he? He got right to the point.
Right.
Well, that's interesting. And they neither found me in the temple disputing with any man, neither raising up the people, neither in the synagogues nor in the city. So I didn't come to Jerusalem as a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. What he did is he came to Jerusalem for the feast, bearing gifts for his brethren, the poor saints in Jerusalem. Neither can they, verse 13, neither can they prove the things whereof they now accuse me, but this I confess unto thee, that after the way which they call heresy, so worship I the God of my fathers, believing all things which are written in the law and in the prophets, and have hope toward God, which they themselves also allow, that there shall be a resurrection of the dead, both of the just and the unjust. And herein do I exercise myself to have always a conscience void of offense toward God and toward men. So, see what he's saying? I'm a Jew, I'm a Hebrew, and I worship the same God of the Hebrews. It's the same Lord. Okay? And that's important. That's important that you understand that. There are people today that say, well, the God of the Old Testament, he's a cruel, tyrannical, evil under God, and we needed Jesus to soften that angry God. No, it's the same God.
Right. And
Jesus Christ, pre-incarnate, is Jehovah of the Old Testament. He is the God of Israel. And so there are hints of Gnosticism even today, where they want to separate the God of the Old Testament from the God of the New Testament. And that's a great heresy. And Paul is having none of that. He's not of a sect of the Nazarenes. It's not a break-off group. They're calling it the way he worships heresy, but what he's saying is it's a continuation of the worship of the true God. Okay? And that's the way he worships. And let's see. Now, verse 17, after many years I came to bring alms to my nation and offerings, whereupon certain Jews from Asia found me purified in the temple, neither with multitude nor with tumult. So he didn't bring a bunch of insurrectionists in with him into the temple. He wasn't causing trouble. And it doesn't seem that the ones from Asia are there accusing him particularly either. It seems like this is a delegation from the high priest, so It's interesting, those accusers don't seem to be on hand, as it's all false witnesses, who ought to have been here before the object if they had aught against me. So once again, he's saying, if they had anything against me, why aren't they here, is what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
Or else let these same here say if they found any evil doing in me while I stood before the council. Except be it for this one voice that I cried standing among them, touching the resurrection of the dead, I'm called into question by you this day. So the only tumult that he legitimately caused is, in a sense, that political thing where he said, I believe in the resurrection, and that caused a division between the Sadducees and the Pharisees. Okay. Let's see. And when, verse 22, and when Felix heard these things, having more perfect knowledge of that way, he deferred them and said, when Lysias, the chief captain, shall come down, I will know the uttermost of your matter. So let's just put this off a little while. I'm not going to make a decision. Let's just sweep it under the rug. Let's get Lysias down here. And I want to hear some more of these things. And it says he had knowledge of that way, and we're going to find out that's because his wife was a Jewess. And he commanded, verse 23, a centurion to keep Paul and to let him have liberty, that he should forbid none of his acquaintance to minister or come unto him. So Paul he's sort of in bonds, but he's got some liberty within that captivity that people can assist him. And it looks to me like he's wanting some payola to let Paul out of this. But that's not going to happen. After certain days, when Felix came with his wife Drusilla, which was a Jewess, he sent for Paul and heard him concerning the faith in Christ. So he almost reminds me of Herod and the John the Baptist, and he would listen to John the Baptist. But when worse comes to worse, well, we'll cut his head off. He's not going to be a believer. In fact, what he hears sends a little bit of a terror in him. So he heard him concerning the faith in Christ. He wanted to hear these things. And he reasoned. Let's see. Verse 25. And he reasoned of righteousness, this is Paul, temperance and judgment to come. So Felix is convicted here. And Felix trembled and answered, go thy way for this time, and when I have a convenient season, I will call for thee. So the truths that Paul was giving him convicted him, but not to be a believer, but it just scared him. It scared him. Verse 26, and he hoped also that money should have been given of him of Paul, that he might loose him. And he wasn't going to do the right thing. He wanted some money to do it. See? Wherefore he sent for him the oftener and communed with him. So it seems like, I need money, I need money, I need money. I'm giving you a little bit of freedom here. Why can't these guys come up with some money, and then we'll let you go? So, but after 2 years, Porcius Festus came into Felix's room, his place of authority. And Felix, willing to show the Jews a pleasure, left Paul bound. So see, he really wasn't interested in what he had to say. It was just kind of a novelty, just kind of a caged bird that had some scary things to say, but give me some money. No money? No, we'll just keep you in jail because it's keeping the Jewish faction happy that you're there. So this is Felix. We're going to find Festus is a little bit better character. He has a little bit better character than Felix. And Felix is just going to leave this issue for the next governor to take care of. And it won't be taken care of here either, because Paul is going to appeal to Caesar. And that is how he's going to get to Rome. If he hadn't have appealed to Caesar, well, he would have been left free there. But Paul knew that he was to go bound to Rome. Okay. and for that reason he appealed to Caesar. Okay, so we got through a couple of chapters, and next time we will hit the ground running with chapter 25, and hopefully we can do 2 chapters next time. I don't know. We'll give it a shot.
Okay, okay.
All right. We doing okay?
Oh, yes.